Hello everybody and welcome to Settlement Survival, where today we're going to be starting out a new series and a tutorial series at that here in Settlement Survival. So with further ado, let's start breaking down the game. So with the intro just simply cued like that, that's how we're going to start doing stuff. At the start of the video, explain what we're doing. Then we'll jump straight to the intro. That's going to be my pattern, guys, just so you all know for these kind of videos from future onwards. Although sometimes I might not do that. I might just do the intro following the video. It just varies, so just be aware of that. Now, this is the main menu of Settlement Survival, and this is the same menu you will see if you're brand new and never played a game before. How have I achieved this? I've cleared all my saves, and I've done that for the series and because there's been a lot of updates. So I thought we're going to go based off the updates, and I have read over a lot of the changes. I will happily pop them up quickly. And I've read all the way back to March. And just for point of reference, this is all the updates that have occurred. Right down to the line. If you go right to where it was. Okay. Let's see. I've gone past a bit here now, but you can see my point. So that's the start of the year, right? So from start of the year up to here, a lot of changes. And we are yet to get the tourism DLC, but I tell you this now, that is going to be part of this series when it comes out, so very excited for it. Now, in the last series we used some mods, and in this series the mod pack that we had is broken because of some changes, and because the mod owner hasn't updated to match the optimizations that the game runs. And I'm not going to get into the technical side of it. I'm aware exactly of what's broken in the mod because I've took the time to work out which mod was broke inside of the multi-pack and then got rid of that mod. But having got rid of that, it got rid of the path mapping organization, meaning will they prioritize this lane or this lane if it's 2 by, those kind of things. It's tiny things that are just aesthetics. Having the main road be the busiest and the side roads be less busy. It's not something I'm worrying about. It's just a visual, you know. A lot of the things I had mod-wise were more aimed at just changing how stuff looked and felt. So if anything, not having many mods in probably helps us a bit. So with further ado, let's start a new game. So when you press new game, guys, you're going to get confronted with a screen like this, and we're going to go through this with lightning speed, and we're going to break down every single thing we're doing. So first off, you got your mode at the top, and at the top this is basically an option between standard and sandbox, sandbox being creative mode, a bit like Minecraft creative mode, and we're in standard, meaning survival. We're going to make a name for the town. It's going to be Tutoria. And then we're going to go through the difficulty. Now, if you're new to this, I always recommend you go with easy, but we're going normal because I have a lot of experience. I would go more than that, but I'm not trying to demonstrate the extreme way to play the game. I'm trying to show you the basics for now, and then we will do an extreme series later on, by all means. So with normal selected, let's break down this entire difficulty tree. So when you change something here, so say I change this, score goes up. It'll obviously go to custom build, but the score goes up, okay? So if I do that, score goes up, higher a number on difficult score, that basically means how difficult it will be. I mean, if we were to go in here and really just crank this up to 10, I mean, this won't make a difference there, but rarely, yeah. Scarce, yeah, we've got it all there. That's just insane for the game. Whereas if we do easy, it's less than 1,000. And what you're changing here is the following. How often disasters happen? Default means, yeah, they happen, but on a once every 5-year basis usually. As you get a bit further on though, it's every 2 years, and eventually it does become quite common every 2 to 4 years, varying. I have done some mathematics behind that, so I'm not just spitting out a number. It has a weird bell curve to it though. It's a double bell. It varies. There's obviously possibly some chance it's a random data, meaning it's just random. But in the early days, it's once every 5 years for certain. Meaning once you hit a certain population, disasters then can happen every 5 years, and they'll be random, everything from a fire to a flood to a drought and tornado, those kind of things. To follow up from that, initial materials, what do you start with to go into the game, where you don't have to gather anything, you've already got stuff with you: food, water, building materials, tools, clothes, etc. Those kind of things are very important, but we're on default here. It's pretty straightforward. Initial structures. So as you're finding a pattern here, all these are initial things, meaning what we start out with. And with initial structures, that means, do you start with a stockpile? You need a marketplace. Do you start with a church, a well, all those types of things, a toilet? The answer is no. If you go with scarce, you start with the marketplace, stockpile, and a builder's cabin, and that's it. To follow up from that, initial population, it's in the name. How many people would you start with? 21 is going to be our magic number here, and that's what we're going to go with. However, you do have a wide range of options. You can go up to 30 or right down to 2. When we do it at the Extreme series, we're going to go with 2, and that's going to be really fun. I can't wait for that. And last but not least, initial cubs. What are cubs? Cubs are animals, and they're domesticated animals, meaning you can build a pasture, farm animal pen, and start harvesting them for leather, food, and other useful items that maybe, say, eggs, milk, those kind of things. So you can start to make them usable straight out of the box, whereas if you have none of them, you have to go find them, and you can only get them from the areas that the map every year tells you is a resource node for an animal, meaning you got to put a hunter's hut next to it, or get very lucky and they'll wander into town domesticated, very rare, and you just got to go and get the animal, or you can buy them. Buying them in the early days, not very viable. We're not going to do that. I'm going to show you exactly how you can get your first animal out of the box and at least another crop, so don't worry, we're going to get to that. And that's all the initial items that you can start with. And now we're moving on to the actual map itself and the variables around that. So the temperature, how hot can it get and how cold can it get? Well, you can't have heat waves per se, although that is a thing that can happen as a disaster. You can get extreme cold weather in the winter, and standard just means it can get hot, it can get cold, and it does both equally. So hot in the summer, cold in the winter, but a nice balance for that idea. If you wanted to make your life easier, you can set it to warm, meaning you don't use as much firewood, if any. You can still end up using a bit of firewood, but not as much as you imagine. And then you've got the cold, meaning it's quite cold in the early days of the year. Summer's the only warm bit, it's using a bit more firewood. And extreme cold, it's only warm in small parts of the summer. That is basically how that works. And to follow up with that, you've got seeds. Now seeds, they're your plants. You can get given 2 random seeds, and if you went with 3, you'll get on average at least another fruit and 2 plantables on a normal farm. That in itself, starting with 2, is not a big thing because you can still get them from resource nodes on the map where you send a gatherer's hut to go and get them within its range. And that is in itself an easy way of getting seeds. So again, like I said with animals, you got to go and get them. Technically it's domesticating plants is a thing, or you can buy them. And there's other actual small scenarios. You can have wandering groups of people that's town's been famished by a plague or illness, and they come into your town and go, can we move in? If we can move in, we'll give you, say, potatoes. And if you have potatoes, then that's a win. You know, you get about 20 people and a fruit. A veg, sorry. Fruit, honestly. Potatoes not a fruit, guys. I didn't go to school for fruitology, but I can tell you it's not a fruit. And when those people move in, there's a risk of the plague, or whatever else there is, but it's very rare that a plague will fully go rampaging through your town, especially in the early days. It's possible, but it's rare, especially if you do all the right measures with healthcare, and body disposal. To move from that, you've got a citizen's lifespan, which in itself is misleading beyond belief. This is not going to mean that your citizens will grow quicker population-wise. Now, it does have a small play in that, but not much, because you've got to teach your new pops in schools. And if you don't have a school, they won't learn and they'll be considered uneducated workers, but they still got to grow up before they can become a worker. And all this determines is how long do they live before they reproduce, and how long after that do they die. And it usually means family generations. How long does a generation last before the next generation comes along? That's all it means. It doesn't mean much more than that. Now, having it set to default or to short or long does not affect your game difficulty score. Meaning, if I turn that back, the only thing it's changing is the preset difficulty. And this is almost akin to nothing, right? It just determines how long does one person live, and it actually only comes really into play if you want to name them. For example, if I rename someone and then they die 5 minutes later, what was the point? Whereas if I rename someone and they died 2 years later, then that's more practical. To follow from that, you've got random events. Those are like crates floating down the river, wandering trader, anything positive like festivals, aliens flying over your farms to give you a boost in crop production. That is a thing that happens. These are all just simple things, again, very nice and fun. That's all it is. To follow from that, resource output. As always, this is basically how much can a building produce and what's the variable. Is it going to go 100%, 120, or a bit less than that? And if you click on this, you get a breakdown of that. So sufficient is 120, for those that don't know, or 1.2 as the game writes in this part of the code. Default is 1, fewer is 0.8, and scarce is 0.5. Now, how do I know that? Because all the other systems work in the same way. So in here, it actually has it just written in its raw format. So you'll find that in the game, it just measures it by percentage. So half production would be scarce, which is pretty difficult, as I will show you in the future. Initial health and happiness. I hate this one because this is so misleading. All that means is they'll start very happy with the village, regardless of the fact that you might not have all the basic facilities, a church, a school, a health center of sorts, a toilet, a house, an individual's house, not a shared house. Those are all that applies to, meaning they will ignore that your village is not top tier for the initial starting period of a year and about half. And about then, you better have it up and running, or their happiness with the town goes down, and if their happiness goes down, their productivity follows with it. To follow from that, tech points. This is the most important thing in the game for progression. 1 point is 1 item on the tech tree. Starting with 3 points with about 100 items on the tech tree is insane. And I don't know how we just unlocked something then, but we did. I think it thinks the game's playing. But anyway, that's what that applies to. Tech XP output is what the name says. How much XP did you produce? And it's the same principle. 1.2 being the highest, so 100 to 20%, and the lowest in this measurement being 80%. And so that is literally everything in here that will affect the game difficulty. The rest below in the map area is aesthetics and visuals and appearance. And you could argue down here that some of this actually does change the difficulty, but it doesn't actually do such a thing. It's kind of misleading in itself, but we're going to go from top to bottom on the map section now. So when it comes to the map, this is just determining how it generates the map. It doesn't really play a major difference, but we're going to walk you through how you set your map up. Now, if you're not using the mod that allows you to have giant maps, and I mean 10 times the size of the default map, which I do not recommend, because I'm going to tell you now, when I ran it, my computer hated it once I filled the normal grid and started filling the next one. because the game isn't really made for that. It can do it, but it starts to feel really slow. And you'll notice that if you do build on those bigger maps, but you play with the normal game maps and you've not installed a map mod that allows for bigger maps, yeah, going large, it's normal. It's made for that. So in here, what we can do, and we have a code already, 3942, that we're going to type in, and we've selected a large map. Now, vegetation density just means if we look on the map here, we've got to read there, how many naturally spawning plants are going to be around these trees. I'm going to stick with default like the rest of it. Same with animals. How many animals will we see in the area? Same thing I'm going to do. For lakes, it's how big do you want the lake to be and how many lakes do you want. We only want one, which is default, and we want it to be medium. That's all we want. Same with a river, default and default so 1 and default is all we want. Fewer mountains, I cannot stress it enough. Please tick fewer mountains for your own sake. And then ore density at default, and that is literally the setup for this. So now you've done all this, we hit start our game. Okay, so when you start the game, you're going to load in, and this is literally what you're going to see. You're going to see this giant mesh of things, and you're going to be holding a moving village. Now, don't worry, this isn't a pillaging banner or anything. This is just where your town's going to go, and it's giving you a clear indication this is the point where you're placing it. Now, the banner doesn't actually stay with the village. And as we can look around, we can kind of get an idea for what we've got in the area, resource-wise, and we can just, you know, poke around. And in the top right, we've got this map up here. I'm going to break a few things down here, okay? On the left-hand side, that's the explanations for each icon. That's called a legend, if anyone doesn't know the technical name for that. And that just tells you what each one of these icons or symbols mean. And in the early days, you don't really need to care about fertile soil, fishing, or grassland. And we'll have the rest of those on. And what we're going to look for in this situation is anything that we can appropriately make use of as we go around. Now, if we don't find anything that we want for our town or city, what we want to call it, to develop, or settlement really, then what we can do down here is hit reset resource point. Now, I always hover over a lake when I press, just in case it tries anything. And then we look around again, just have a quick see. I'm a big fan of that being up there, and I'm a big fan of this here. So then what I'm going to do, now I'm happy with what I've got here, is we'll turn back on these a second and we'll just get an idea. So there's none on this side of the lake. So there's secondary factors. We're worrying about the animal, the seeds, the gold, and the jade, just so we know where that's going to be, because you don't want to build on top of any gold or jade, because you'll lose that point if you're not careful. And what I'm seeing here is it's a great corner, but I still aren't getting a good trade here. So I'm going to turn these back on just to make my life easier when I'm clicking this. And we're going to hit it again. Got gold there now. I'm going to say that's in the way. I want it closer to a mountain. So we're going to do it again. Have an animal and some seeds. Okay, that's perfect. So what I might now do is I could place this somewhere here and get both these animals like so. And that is actually what I'm going to do. But I'm not just going to go hadunk and be like, yep, great. I'm aiming for down there, and yet we'll be building up here. Now, before I press on this, you've got two other options I want to cover. So in the bottom here, we've got main menu, meaning go back to the start, reset how you want your colony to be, and reset map. And if you press that, it's going to randomly generate another map with the same parameters, but with a different seed. Bear that in mind. So we're going to place our colony here. Going to get this lovely screen that's going to tell us, hey, you've placed your settlement, challenges are ahead waiting for you. And that's what we're going to take up on now then. So when you're starting out, you can kind of look around and get an idea for what's going on. And I always do this so I can see what else is, you know, happening around me. But there's a few things I want to cover first, and that's the UI, okay? So it's the usual W, A, S, and D. So W, A, S, and D to move around. You want to press your scroller key in. You can then pan left and right like this. If you want to press your right key in, you can pull around like this. And if you press your left key, that's to select a building as such. As well as that, you've got other keys. I won't read them all out, but I'll show you where to find them in a second. So let's actually look at the UI now, and let's break this down from left to right. First and foremost, the most important thing on this list is I'm joking, not our name. I was going to say it's our name, but no, it's not. It's these 3 items here. So you've got your resources, and in this tab here, it's basically telling you, and you can click on each one of these in each category, what you've got. And this is really useful because it just pulls every item you've got in storage into one tab, and it goes, you have this item. I won't tell you where it is located necessarily, but the AI knows that. You don't need to worry about where it is. They'll work out where it is. All you need to worry about is, do you have it in stock? Simple as that. And say I wanted to track how many clothes we have. So we have these rough clothes here. I'd click on it, and I get this box here, and I'd tick it. And this category now is monitoring those clothes only and nothing else in here. Now, I don't have anything in here to demonstrate that with. So I'm going to go to another category where I can find, here we go, right? So we got timber and planks here. So if I follow the planks, you can see it's only tracking planks there. I turn that off. Pretty straightforward. The next thing I'm going to point out is you have the go to stock management panel. Don't worry about that yet. We're going to get into storage and stock at another date. It's nothing major yet. We might even do it today briefly, but we'll get into it in depth a bit later on, especially when we come to production. And then next to that, you've got disable item. Now, to do this, you basically go onto the items, right? And then you literally just mark it. So if I go into here, we have items here that we can disable. Now, you can't disable this because it's a commercial good. So that's my fault for hovering over that. If I didn't want them to use rough clothes, I can say, no, don't use rough clothes. And that's what this is. So the real application for this is if you're making simple food. So say I'm making pork sausages, right? Well, I now need to go into the menu and find ham on pork on whatever else I'm blocking and click on that. So that the simple foods can be made out of the pork and the people aren't eating the pork. So they're not eating the supply of the simple food before it's made. That's all that does. It's pretty easy. And that's how that works. And that's your resource menu. I always keep it open. It's always handy. Recommend you keep it open. Easy as pie. From that, if you press your H key, that's hide trees. And that's what this is here. So if you want to see what you're building, you can hide your trees. See around you as well. Get an idea of what's going on. We've got some alpacas there, for example. Got a seed over there. Got some geese over there. You know, I can just kind of look around and get a feel for what's around me. And I'm going to quickly say this. Don't worry about the animals looking the same as another resource point. It will never give you the same animal twice if you go and collect it from a point. It can, however, give you one twice in random events. That is possible. Okay? That's just me giving you a heads up. And on from there, you also have a G key. So the letter G for George, or grams, if you want to call it that. So a measurement of unit grams, G for grams. If you press that in, you get this lovely grid. And this is just easy enough to see where you're building. If you want to just see it in grid mode, you can turn it on. If you don't, you can turn it off. Now, little tip for you, if you have your trees hidden and a new tree grows, you will have to re-hide them because that tree that's just grown won't be considered hidden by the game. And that's kind of like how the outskirts is here. So we can see these trees outside the map. If, say, this tree here just grew, that is what you're going to see. You're going to see a tree pop up. I'll hopefully at some point be able to demonstrate that in the near future, but it's not a big issue. You just hide it like that, and it's gone again. So, on from that, you've got your name. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, wow, what a great name. Or secondarily, wow, can I change my name? Yes, you can change your game name. If you click on this, you get a copy of all of the settings that you have set up for that map. And more importantly, you change your name. To follow on from that, you've got the play button. You've got to slow down and speed up. That is pretty much straightforward, and this just tells you how fast it's going. It can go from times 1 to times 10. It's pretty easy enough. Following up with that, you got your currency. I don't think I need to explain this. You make money, you can buy stuff. Making money is pretty difficult. That in itself is actually insanely difficult. But after about your 4th episode into the series, you'll see me really getting in that avenue. It just takes time to get there. To follow that up, the most important thing we've got, the reproduction rate, which is this. This basically means what's for and against it. So, if they don't have a house, they won't make another child. Simple as that. And that's what you got to keep in mind. Now, as we go along, we can actually see how many adults, students, and kids we have. If you don't have a school, you'll only see adults and kids. Once a kid is old enough to become an adult, they will do, and they'll skip the student phase. So normally what should happen to you at a school is child or kid, student, adult. You don't have a school, it's child or kid in this case. Wait that period of being a child, skip school, adult. And we can actually now see on the right how many people actually don't have a job or I can assign to a new job. And that's pretty useful. And to follow up from that, we've got the initial happiness and health. This is what we were on about before. And this is what this will affect. So being lower or less than 60% will affect work efficiency by 10%. Now you can see on the visual we are actually 100%. That's the initial bonus. What that there is telling us is how much we will be making when that bonus runs out. Right now we're actually 100, but it's warning us of what it will be. Same over here. Following up, you got your year and month. That just is so you can keep track of how old the colony is. The temperature. Please, 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 please make sure you're aware of this when you start. If you started out with anything from standard to extremely cold, build a house. I'm going to cover why in a second. This is the seasons graph, and this will just move as it goes along. It's a repeating image. It'll just keep moving. So you'll go from here to here, and this will just move down here. You'll see as that goes along. And then the last 4 tabs, you've got your factions. If you hover over it, you can see your new edicts, the map, and you can get help. And I'm just going to actually go into here. So you've got to do a few things to get this. And you saw in the thing, it oddly enough gave us a heads up that you could actually unlock this. Because the simulation game and the main menu must have run long enough that it actually got to that stage, ironically. And if you hover over, as you can see, you've got these extra options appearing. I don't know why they've done it like that, but anyway. You've got your town details, so I for information. This is your whole tab of managing here. You can see all your workers, the statistics of education, clothing, and then you can look at the structures you have in the town, the production graph, and also how much you want to store said item. You can manage what stock is used, how much is reserved, and how often is it used. You can get graphs of the people, food, fuel, and everything that is possibly measurable. And you can see what you've unlocked. And as we can see in here, actually, other than the school library, we have got tomatoes and cabbage. Both are pretty decent, both are a standard food group. So yeah, and before someone says it, we are not getting into fruitology. I don't care that tomato is technically a fruit. Couldn't care less. We're not getting into it. So, and last but not least, policies. Now this is a very new feature, and this, and I will point this out, is very useful. But as I will point out as well, it's a new feature, it's going to be prone to bugs, but I do like it. And I can't wait to go through this with you guys and really break it down. So just keep that in mind. You'll like it. Cool. So we're going to close that, and we're now going to focus on our actual town. We've gone through most of the UI. We'll cover what's in this bottom bar in a second as we're going through, more likely, sorry. And here is the initial happiness, and that tells you there, by the way, just what's going on. So we're going to let time go in a second. So there we go. And the first thing we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to build a house, and it's going to go straight here. And we're going to prioritize that. And we're not building a house because I want to house everyone. We're building a house because the weather is very cold, and our civilians are prone to get very cold and freeze. If we click on one of them, we can see here this person's temperature is medium, in the middle of that amount. If it gets to red, then their health goes down and they'll die. The way they can get that temperature back up is by going in any house, regardless if it's theirs or someone else's. They can go inside, they can get warm, and then they leave. It's a very good thing. I think it's a very smart system to the game, and we're just going to have that build as such. Now we're going to start going through and pulling a few things apart. So you've got the builder's cabin. If you accidentally destroy this one somehow, and a tree grows where it is, let's just say for sake of argument, you can place this down and it will build automatically, as you can see. But if you place it where there's a plant, you'll have to wait for one of these people to come out here. Doesn't matter who will do it, anyone can do that bit, and they'll get rid of the plant. I'm going to clear both of them now. Okay, that's getting built, so I'm going to let time go a bit faster now then. And then we're going to watch as people actually use that house once they get the firewood. So what we're seeing here is some stuff getting taken from the market, and we've got 240 firewood. Once that's in that house, that firewood, we will start seeing that house actually becoming a usable place. And what we're going to do right now is, across from the pair of them, we're just going to build a well there. And I'm actually going to also put down a storage yard between the house and the well, and I'm going to specify that this is for the water. Okay. And as you can see in here, we got water sanitation, which is a book. And this is some of the new stuff we've got, and I have briefly played with it in one of our older saves just to see and get a feel for it. But what it's basically advocating is, if you have a well, you can specify what type of water is used. Originally in the game you had to purify water, and then they got rid of that, and now they've added it kind of back in a different way. Always great, works like a treat. Now we got a person here who's actually cold now. I was hoping we'd get this example. So they're now going towards that house, right? They've gotten very cold, but they've gone and checked, is there somewhere they can go? And you can see here, Sid has gone in the house, and you'll see here, restores his heat, but he doesn't live here. And that's the point that I was trying to make. So what we're going to do now is we're going to slow down time again, because we're going to focus on these animals here, and we're going to get a hunter's hut. Now this is the only building that will travel anywhere food is at, regardless of how far. Technically there is limitations, is what I'm getting at basically, but they still will aim to go wherever they need to. And by the way, follow along with how I'm building like this. You don't need to worry about structure today. In the next episode, once we kind of got some of the basics set up, we're going to start worrying about having a nice organized village. For now, I don't care about the overall structure of the town. It's just simply, let's build houses here, there, and everywhere, and, you know, give people places to live. Another thing I'm going to do very quickly is do a gather all instruction, and we're just going to say gather all this here for now. That's telling them to go and gather anything that is gatherable. So you've got wood, which is felling the trees, stone, which is iron and stone, you've got plants, which is any type of plant that's on the ground, and then you can also go in here and say stop that task or prioritize that task. You can remove a road as well, and demolish over here. Those are pretty straightforward mechanics to the game, and are very easy to use once you kind of get used to using these menus. Now the menus do actually have letters or numbers in this case, and then in here it's the same. I didn't mean to say letters, I meant to say numbers, yeah. But you do have also symbols for searching keys. If you don't know what it's called, but you can think of it, you can find in here. And we got like crematorium, for example. That will allow for us to burn the bodies instead of burying them, for example, which is what a cemetery is for. And we're not going to build one of those yet, because I don't plan on anyone dying, although I can imagine that at some point it can happen. Hopefully not, but it will eventually. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to prioritize that being built. Now we're still in January and we are going pretty slow. So I'm going to go and speed up the game a bit. And then we're going to also come down to where here is. And we're going to, first and foremost, I'm going to just say, hey, for now, come down here and just gather this area up. Get me some stone. And also clear an area for us to build a hut. Now, why are we building a hut down here? Well, ooh, merchant, we're going to cover on him in a second, but we're building a hut down here to get this. This is a seed. If you put a gatherer's hut here, they will have a chance, not a chance, they will get that seed from there if they are efficient and quick enough at doing so. Okay, that's been built. Let's have a look what this is for you guys. So, with the overhaul of the game, we can sell for silver and we can buy from him. So we can sell and buy. In this case, he wants to either buy 50 stone or sell 600 timber. The stone's a decent-ish rate. I like the rate for the stones to the point I'm going to actually do that one. But the timber is a bit of an oversell. But the stone I like, so I will do that. And that gets us a bit of currency. So now he's appeased, I'm happy, simple trade, and you'll find that that is usually easy enough. It's kind of convenient because we actually gone down here to get some stone, so for a reality situation, for the reality of the situation, we didn't actually lose anything by trading. In fact, we gained a bit more than what you could sell it for normally, because you've got to ship it, and there's a cost of shipping as well. So now we've cleared down here, we're going to go in and we're going to get ourselves a gatherer's hut like so. Never place it on top of any plant, and we're just going to put it down like that as such. And that's just going to allow us to have someone work down there and gather stuff. And I'm just looking around, checking nothing's floating down the river. No alien ships anywhere. Okay. Right. So now we're producing some food. We're going to work on some other sources of food as well. So I'm going to do a farm here. And then I'm going to do another one here. And we'll just have 2 farms like so. And we're not going to overdo it. And I'm going to say cabbage is going to grow there. Tomato is going to grow here. That is pretty straightforward. And that is all we're going to do. And now we're not playing with policies today, guys. So don't think, oh, he's ignoring that we're unlocking policies as we go along. I'm not. Now we could do fishing down here. I'm gonna entertain this a second. So I could build this here, right? Look how far they gotta travel. You know, normally you should build near the river, unless you've got a plan like this. And in which case I'm gonna build down here eventually anyway, along the parallel line that goes to this point here, so that I can at least make use of a straight line across. So this is where that line's going to basically go, and we'll build around here eventually anyway. However, when you're playing, play by your own style. I know in the last series we played from the top corner, working our way down, because things like water can get up from a well, and that was the only real reason to build next to the river in the early days. And as later on we got, the easier it became to get to the river anyway, because we built and expanded. So, yep, and here we go. So we've unlocked alpacas. Now alpacas provide wool and waste is how I'll address it. And that waste is daily, which can be used to fertilize. And when you have too many of them, you will slaughter some to keep the pen low. And in that situation, you will get you'll get 40 alpaca meat and 10 fat. And the fat's useful late game. Early days, you might think it's a waste to store it. It ain't. It's just early days. It's not necessarily gonna make much of a difference. And what we're gonna do here is we're gonna have a very small pasture built there, and then I'll do another one here for the geese, and it's gonna be slightly smaller, that one. And in fact, I'm gonna cancel that quickly, and I'm gonna do the same for the alpaca, changing my mind, because what I'm now gonna do is we're gonna put a road down. And this is just going to give these farms a bit of an ability to be a bit more efficient. I'm just going to clear this bit here. Just a nice simple road, nothing creatively appealing. Okay, so it looks like we've run out of ore, which is okay, because this over here is the ore we're looking for. And if I get my gathering rocks, I can go and gather some, which is great. And if we come back into town, we only have 9 people with our house, and I reckon another 4 houses and they'll be satisfied. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to build some more houses and satisfy that need. And now we've got an injured person already. Aye, right. So, and we got more animals. Great, okay. So, injured people. What happens with injured people? A lot of people ask this in the Discord in the early days of the series, and I appreciate that kind of question, so I'm going to bring it up again. When they're injured, they're less effective, if not out of service outright, and have a chance of dying from their injuries sustained. If you build even the simplest of medical centers, however, a bandage or even just power of healing by magical touching the wound and it appears to heal is possible. Yeah, I said it in a comical way just so you can get the idea that these places are OP, and we're going to place this just like so. That's a clinic as such. Now that I'm going to prioritize because we probably should build it anyway, and the other thing I'm going to prioritize building is a firewood chopping station. And in matter of fact, I'm going to go into sciences and sorry, not sciences. We're going to go into construction. We're going to get the sawmill. Okay. And I'm going to quickly close and reopen that. And we're going to build a sawmill. Now, this is more efficient for those that don't know. And the ones on rivers are even more efficient than that. So I could put that here and get a real bonus from it being on water. But when you're chopping wood, you get so much on a ratio from the chopping house. Okay, but you get more from the sawmill proportionally. So you can get more out of the sawmill than you will out of the chopping house when chopping wood into firewood. Basically, more efficient because it makes more from a smaller number. It's always handy. And what we're seeing here as we're developing is all these resources are pulling together now, and we're kind of resourcing stuff evenly, and we're already in May. And as I'm going around, I'm just gathering some stone, you know, saying, hey, you guys go get that. These guys go get that. Let's get some wood over here. And we're having a bit of a bottleneck because all our workers are here. So we're going to add another few workers. You press the plus key, you add, and you press the minus key, you take out. And that's all that does. We've added all 6 of them in there. That's a temporary thing. I don't recommend, especially early days, you always fully staff your builders' huts. I recommend 4 people in it is usually a good way to go. Just an easier way of running it, of course. And as we're going along now, we're just going to give the game some time now to just develop up. And then we're going to cover a few mechanics in the winter once these things are built. So I'm just going to let the game build these as we wait. So as we see here, we've managed to build this, and as you can see in here, we can make it out of dung or 2 wood for 40, which is an insane exchange rate. Always recommend it. It's really good. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to close the job there for that. I'm going to take a worker out here and close those out. I'm going to open the job in here, hopefully allowing for this production rate to go up, because there is actually a variable here. Every 5 days is needed. So 5 days is how much can be produced by one person. So 2 logs are cut every 5 days, making 40 firewood every 5 days. So 40 every 5. And that takes 5 stamina, which they have to eat food to coop up. It's pretty complex in a way, but ultimately it's not. And that's what I want to address. Now, we are going to quickly pull up policies. And I'm just going to really quickly run through it so you can get an idea. Right, if we go down here, you can prioritize the distance or the education level, for example. And another thing you can do is the density of housing. You can mess with the food and how it grows and harvests. You can even mess with import and export, which is always great, but this is something you got to consider. And as you can see here, these are the kind of things that goes along with your town. So that is absolutely the way it works with the towns. And as you can see, we have built ourselves a nice little hamlet here in Tutoria. And so we now got to face the winter. This is our first year in the game. And something I want to point out is we haven't got the seed down here. And it looks like we're about to get it. And we may have just got it. I really hope we did, because if we didn't, we did thankfully. But if we didn't, when this cold frost hit, we would have lost it. Now I'm going to close that down there, because it's no use to me now anyway. But as well, it's a freezing risk. Quite literally, you could freeze to death. So we're going to look at what seed we got. I think it's... Oh, it's peas. Okay. Okay, that's fine. So we got something that's... it's not very useful, but it is food nonetheless. And then we have got a bit of an imbalance, as we can see up here, of food, meaning it's not much, but I don't think we're at much risk anyway, as the houses are fully stocked. So that's probably where most of the food is, if we're honest. And the water looks pretty decent. Water worker did a good job. I'll assign a second person to that. I don't usually do that when it's only 20 people, but 26 people. We're getting close to the 30 mark, so I'll add another person there just in case. Alpaca-wise, the capacity here and here is very low. I'm not worrying about that though. We've got a new tech point. I haven't gone into here yet, so we are now actually going to take our time to really look around here and make a few decisions. And I'm just opening these so you guys can get an idea of how big this tree of tech actually is. You know, as we're going through and seeing, we're getting an idea. And I'm going to go with school expansion. And I will also entertain the research institute at some point, not now though. We'll take on mining, okay. And I'll take on quarrying as well as a concept. So that's what we've done there, and we've got other stuff that we can do, like mountain quarries, senior quarry, and stuff like that. And yeah, it is an interesting topic to go down. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do, and that's ultimately where it goes. Now you can see I clicked on this, and I clicked on this intentionally. This symbol here means it's basically produced more than necessary or requested. In this case, 500 domestic fuels produced. I'm going to leave it at that, because right now in the early days, I have no need to go any higher than that. And also, side note, devs, thank you for adding batch remodeling in. You don't know how useful that is until you need it, even if you have to unlock it now. So, this, guys, was our first year, and we've done pretty well. Now, yeah, we are a bit low on the food, but we have got some hunters, although one of our hunters is actually injured, which is fine, because I'm assigning more people to that job anyway. And I'll assign one more to the farm, possibly. I might make a bigger farm this season, yeah. We'll have a look what the merchant has in a second. Make a bigger farm there. What are you... Oh. Interesting. Oh, we've got 86 days, but even if we did, I'm afraid I'm going to dismiss your deal because I wouldn't have a chance in Kingdom Come of actually, you know, being able to get that deal on the road. I'm going to go with cabbage here. Yeah, and I'm going to take a worker out of there and go with 3 workers there just to save ourselves some resources, just in case someone dies, of course. So we got these guys working here. They're going to be crucial till the weather gives up a bit as March comes around. Okay. March has arrived, that's always good. And we got some rain. I keep pressing on that, so tab, sorry about that. So, you're gonna notice in the colony there's these little molehills, and if you're interested to find out what they are, stay tuned to the next episode where I explain why they're not molehills. With that said, guys, as always, I hope you've enjoyed the first of the tutorial series, and we're going to see you next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.